Hello and welcome to a new video of the Path to DevOps series. I hope in this video you're noticing something different and maybe you can leave a comment below about what you think is different. So today we're going to talk about running all three applications together locally on our host. And the reason for that is because until now we've created a database either in Azure or locally using Docker containers, and then we've compiled or learned how to compile the backends and also learned how to package and serve the front end. So now the next logical step is to run all of them together and obtain the website locally on our host. And I'm going to show you right away how to do that step by step. Let's begin with the CartAPI, shall we? As you can see in my ID on the lower right corner, I already have three terminals named appropriately opened. One of them will pertain to one of the services so that we don't confuse them, right? And already in the CartAPI, I am inside the CartAPI folder. And if you look on the left-hand side view, I don't have the target folder, which from the previous videos means I did not compile the CartAPI yet. And I have a very good reason for that. My reason being that if I run both CartAPI and ProductAPI with their default profiles, they're both going to try to start on port 8080 of our local host. And this means a port conflict because you can't run two processes listening on the same host port. And what I want to do now is show you how to compile the CartAPI application using the local profile instead of the default so that it will start on port 8081 and then we can start ProductAPI on port 8080 and there will be no conflict between our backends. So the command is fairly simple. It's mvn clean install like before, but then minus capital P for profile and then the name of the profile or the ID of the profile, which is local. So let's do that, and it shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds, up to 5 I think. So yeah, it's actually 3.9 seconds, less than 4. And now we have our target folder. So now let's run the CartAPI, and we will do that by running the java -jar command and then do target. Oh, sorry, my button bugged. So we'll do the cart jar. Yeah. And we'll wait for a couple of seconds for the context to initialize and the Java process to be up and running, connect to the database and all that. All right, there we have it. The final message you're interested in is this one: started, name of the application and the time it took to start. And then if we go to the browser and we do localhost colon 8081 because we modified the port of the CartAPI, here we have it. Yeah, so this is the message CartAPI returns to us. So now CartAPI is running. Let's allow the CartAPI to run in the background and switch over to the ProductAPI terminal. As you can see in the left-hand view, I also didn't compile the ProductAPI. So let's do just that. And mvn clean install should compile the application and set the default port for ProductAPI to 8080. And now we won't have any conflict between the backends. Now the build is a success, didn't take more than 4 seconds. And let's run the application. So that's java -jar target, sorry for that. And this one is called app100 snapshot. And let's allow the application to initialize, connect to the database, and then see it's running on port 8080. There we go. In 15 seconds, the application started. Yeah, this is the last line you want to see. And if we open localhost 8080/product, there we go. We have the JSON serialized information from the database. Moving on to the last piece of our puzzle is the front end, which we have already compiled, and if you want to know how to do that, just check out the video that will be linked somewhere around here about how to compile the front end. And the reason why I'm not including this here is because it's taking a lot of time to compile that front end. But in order to run it, you just need to make one little change, and that is tell the front end how to access the two local backends that are now running on port 8080 and 8081. And for that, it's pretty simple. I already prepared the file for you guys. It's called the proxy.conf.json. And as you can see here, the Angular server, when it will start, it will proxy everything that goes to /product to localhost 8080. Yep, right here, that's the target. And everything that goes to cart to localhost 8081. So now we have the declaration of this proxy config file. How do we tell Angular to use it? Well, that's also fairly simple. You need to go into the angular.json file, and under serve, search for the serve keyword. You will see here under options, the proxy config is already set to proxy.conf.json. Okay, so that means this file will be loaded when you try to run the ng-serve command. Now, the ng-serve command, if we go to the package.json, is actually npm run start. So if I was to move to the front-end terminal and do the npm run start, it means it would run this script, which triggers the ng-serve command and automatically consumes my proxy file. So let's do just that. And 1 second, I didn't click right. There we go. Now this will take a little longer than a couple of seconds, so we just have to wait for it. And as you can see here, it said already that it proxied the cart to localhost 8081. So this means it's consuming the right files, and here we are, it's successfully compiled. And the last step we need to go into is to localhost, and the default port for Angular server is 4200. And here we have the full website on our device. I'm going to move my webcam for a second here, or at least try to. Yeah, here we go. So you can see the logo in the top right corner. Okay, so this is how the website looks. And if I was to zoom in a little and I click the buy now button, this message here is actually the message coming from the CartAPI, which shows now the front end running locally is actually properly configured to communicate with the two backend services, because the buy now info comes from the CartAPI and the product info comes from ProductAPI. Yeah. Now, I realize that some of this information was a handful for some of you, so I will go in depth using diagrams. Let's hope that clears stuff up. And this is the first diagram where I will explain the concept of ports and why we use them and how they support our applications running locally. The first thing you need to note is the gray box, which is your local host. And by local host, I mean your laptop or PC that you're using right now in order to follow along. And this device is obviously on a network, which is why the gray box is inside of the purple box, but we don't actually care about the network for this example, so we just leave it as a purple box and we don't look at it. Now, your local host might have one or more network interface cards, the one where you put your cable in or the one that actually connects to your Wi-Fi. But the point is, how can one device with one or two network interface cards do so many things on the internet at the same time? For example, you can talk on Skype with your family while being on Facebook looking at photos, while you're actually downloading something in the background, and you get the point. Well, the answer to this is because even if you have one network interface card, each connection your local host does on the internet is assigned a certain port. And if you look here, you see that these triangles are actually the ports I'm talking about. They are something virtual. I'm not talking about hardware ports here where you actually plug in something. These are software ports, okay? And your operating system takes care of this. And they are 65,535 of them, which is quite a lot. So you can, in theory, sustain a lot of concurrent connections over the internet. Now, some of them are actually famous, like 80 or 443, because they are known to be assigned to a specific protocol. So port 80 is actually HTTP, while port 443 is port HTTPS. And if you're interested about other ports which are notoriously known to support a protocol, you can check them online. I'm gonna leave a link below actually for you to do that. Jumping back to our stack of microservices, let's see how ports allow us or actually support us to achieve inter-service communication. Here we have our 3 applications from the stack, and when we started them, each of them received a port, either because we configured them so, like for the backend, or because in the case of frontend, the Angular server begins on port 4200 by default. And we need that port in order to open the page in the browser. But how do they communicate with one another? Well, if the frontend tries to access, let's say, ProductAPI, it will actually call localhost because they all run on the localhost. So it's basically like they're in the same network with the port 8080, which was assigned to ProductAPI. And as you can see in the diagram, the call will actually take the request from the frontend to the ProductAPI and bring the response all the way back. Now, all of this was configured in the frontend's proxy conf JSON. Yeah, so when you call /product, you're actually going to be redirected to HTTP localhost 8080. And that's the whole magic trick behind running services locally and them communicating with one another. I hope now you understand better how you can run services locally and them communicating with one another and using one another. If you still have questions though, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer your questions. Now this is the final video in the running the services local sub-series of the Path to DevOps journey, because starting the future video will be using different technologies to run our microservices, because we've only done this to understand the process. However, we can all agree that opening 3 terminals and running commands manually in order to map services on different ports is kind of cumbersome, and we don't want to be doing that on a daily basis. So what we'll do next is learn how to compile these applications using container technologies, and also how you can run all 3 of these services together using containers. And spoiler, it's just one command and it's fairly simple. So I hope you enjoyed the content and I'll see you next time. Cheers!